In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Sports Social, now on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Cricket World Cup is here, and you can follow all the action on the Sports Social Podcast Network. And unlike other podcasts, Zero Ducks Given has got 2 members of the team in India for the tournament. I didn't get an invite. It's fine. I'm over it. I'm not bitter at all. But if you fancy a laugh and the occasional bit of cricket insight, then join Stephen Finn, Daniel Norcross and me, Toby Tarrant, and search Zero Ducks Given wherever you find your podcasts.
Serie Chronicles is a Media Chronicles production.
We will talk about Juventus, obviously. We will not forget about them. We will talk about the relegation battle, Milan making top 4. But we must start with the fact that there is a European final on Wednesday evening. So you're probably, if you are listening to this, you're listening to it in the morning, hopefully. Roma will take on Sevilla, who have made this competition theirs, won it a record 6 times overall, first time in 2006. So it's really amazing how many they've picked up in the last just under 20 years. And this has been a really weird season for Sevilla, right? Like they started off with Lopetegui, sacked, brought in Jorge Sampaoli, sacked, and Mendilibar has really managed to right the ship. They haven't been doing so well recently, but you understand that. Eyes on the prize at the moment, lost to Real Madrid over the weekend. Roma lost to Fiorentina as well. I actually didn't think that was going to happen, to be honest with you, because I thought Fiorentina might be a bit exhausted from the Coppa Italia. Nicky, is Jose Mourinho going to win a consecutive European final?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because it's like these 2 unstoppable forces in our like ideas of European football. Sevilla always win the Europa League. It's 6 now, right? Or is it 7? I should know that, and I've got my mix up in my head.
6.
Yeah, because this will be the 7th. Yeah. Whereas Mourinho, of course, has had 5 European finals and won all of them. So you've got these 2 like forces colliding, and one of them has to give way in some way. It's such a hard judgment to make with Roma specifically. Let's start with Roma because obviously, we cover Italian football first and foremost, because they really haven't been good in Serie A for a while, right? Like they've gone 7 games, 4 draws, 3 losses. I thought they were a little unlucky against Fiorentina. They did sort of have the better start in that game. They were on top for a while. But even then, like by the end of it, there are some of the numbers that really jump out at you. I mean, Fiorentina with 18 successful dribbles to Roma's 2 really tells you something about the style in which the 2 teams play and the sort of perhaps lacking ability in this Roma team when Dybala isn't there to have players who can take on their man and beat them sometimes. But it's been clear for a while at the same time that Jose is single-mindedly interested in winning this Europa League. A lot of people think he's going to leave at the end of the season one way or another, and he wants to go out with this high of doing it. And he's just such an absolutely ruthlessly cynical manager, as we saw against Leverkusen in that second leg of that semi-final, that even with a strong possibility that Dybala isn't going to make it, which is huge, by the way, in terms of the absolute sort of game-changing quality that he brings to Roma, I find it hard to discount him. I do think, when I sort of boil down to it, what do I expect from this game? I think it's going to be really niggly, nasty, shithousery game of football, right? Like, I mean, Sevilla have the worst disciplinary record in all of La Liga. They've got, I haven't got the numbers in front of me. I checked this before and I didn't write them down, but they've got an astonishing number of yellow and red cards. Let me grab that quickly. They've got in La Liga 111 yellow cards a season and 13 red cards. Bonkers. But also Roma, who haven't actually, like, on the paper, when you look at it at first, got anything like as bad a record of that. Roma have had, I think, 13 members of their sideline staff sent off at different times this season because they've been sort of bringing all of that energy to their dugout. So I think it's going to be not a high sort of end-to-end chances, entertainment game, which is interesting because actually the second leg of Sevilla's game against Juventus, Juventus was quite end-to-end and open and quite sort of entertaining as a game. I don't think it'll be like that at all. And I just sort of in my soul believe that when the game gets nasty enough and it all is niggly and messy enough, I sort of believe that's where Jose Mourinho wins. Like that's where he finds his moments. So maybe that's a bit too hocus pocus and feely, but I think that's my first instinct on the game, Mina. I don't know about you.
It's difficult because, football heritage, both can claim
Football
that.
heritage. Exactly.
It really is that. And you're right. Sevilla has been the worst for yellow cards. So they really do know how to play a dirty game when they want to. In fact, Acuna, who is not available for this match because of how many red cards and yellow cards he's accrued, he's the most player who received 9 yellows and 3 red cards overall this season, the highest of anyone in Europe. Roma, aerial duels, that's where they are at their forefront. They are at their best. They know how to make the most from any set pieces. And I think it's a dangerous weapon to have coming into these types of finals. We saw, for example, Sevilla, they conceded that equalizer against Juventus from a set piece. The thing is Mendilibar is a very pragmatic coach. He's somebody who's really understood what the occasion requires. And even in the match against Juventus, even though it was end-to-end in the second leg, overall, if you look at the tie, Sevilla very much deserved to be the team that overcame Juventus and to go through to the final. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Mourinho is is a coach who doesn't care if he's going to do it with 20% possession, who doesn't care what the aesthetics are of the game, who doesn't care, how many people get sent off from his coaching staff or what kind of things that they need to do. I think the one thing that I can say to him, which is the greatest compliment of the side, is that this is a side that throughout the season have been relied upon for their mentality and for their attitude in games. I think they are always switched on for the most part. I think they have always come in with a clear desire to win, no matter how exhausted they are, no matter what the schedule was. Yes, their football isn't beautiful. I don't, personally, you know me, I'm not interested in whether or not people play good football. I care about results, and I think that he's provided that with what he had. I'm interested to see, I guess, what Dybala can do, how much he's going to be able to play, if he really is capable of putting in a performance that's going to be interesting to Roma, whether they can even get a goal. Although like I said, I do think set pieces will make a difference. And here's the thing, Sevilla have built themselves up on the fact that Sevilla's home ground, the Sanchez Pizjuan, is just this amazing fortress. They simply do not lose at home. And that has been something that is very much defined them for many, many years now. Lopetegui's reign, Mochi coming in and out. It's always been Sevilla don't lose at home. And yet somehow they get to finals, and even though it's never at home, they still win them all. But it's one of those things,
Yeah.
I have no idea which way this is going to go, but surely I agree with you. Surely this is Roma's.
Hey gang, just wanted to let you know that you can now get a free 14-day trial of our Chronicles Tifosi Patreon membership.
Subscribe now for free for 14 days to get access to all of our full episodes, solo minisodes, bonus content, even behind the scene bonuses like our chats about football, and of course our chats about life in general. You can also get the entire back catalogue of Serie A Chronicles content.
So head over to serieachronicles.com/Patreon and subscribe to the Chronicles Tifosi membership for free. I think I sort of gave the sort of, like I said, the fuzzy answer to begin with, which is about feelings and about what these teams' sort of histories are. But I think it is worth reminding ourselves that teams aren't actually their histories. Teams are the teams they have now, and they're the coaches they have now. And I think Mendilibar is such a fascinating case because really he's kind of been the survival expert, right? You brought him in because things were going so badly under Lopetegui and Sampaoli that it's we just need to make sure we're safe this season, right? And he's this real no nonsense character who doesn't believe in stats and doesn't believe in sort of technology and just wants to get things old school and effective and to the point. And I think that has clearly improved their season no end, and it's clearly been effective in big games too, because they did obviously knock out Juventus deservedly in the semi-final. I just sort of think that actually finals are decided on the details. And actually Jose Mourinho, the reason he's won all those finals is because he's very good when he needs to be at getting into those fine details and saying, okay, here's the areas that I think I can unpick you. Here's the areas that I think we can best you. I don't think this Roma team, and we've sort of been saying it all season, I don't think on paper it looks sort of overwhelmingly brilliant, right? I think when you look at the back, it's certainly a lot more solid now. Chris Smalling's back from injury, but Smalling is kind of the only one there who you're really sort of feeling is having like an undeniably great season. Mancini, and then I don't know if you're going to go with Ibanez or Llorente with them. In the midfield, you've got Cristante, I feel like has really bought into the Jose Mourinho ethic and is one of those players that you feel like his peak Mourinho will go through the walls for him, and that's really important. I love Spinazzola on the left when he's on song. But then you get up front and we've got Pellegrini, who again, Mourinho player, like does have the right attitude and all that, but he's not had as great a season as I hoped for him at the start, certainly. You've got Abraham, who's not had anything like the season he had last season. You've got Belotti, who never ever scores. I think Mourinho does like him again for his sort of attitude, but never ever scores. And then you've got El Shaarawy, who in bursts, I enjoy him. He's the one player there who maybe can do some going past a man and do something. But I mean, he's a journeyman at this point, Mina. He's not someone who you're looking at and going, that's the great talent that's going to set alight European football. He's had that sort of history when we thought for a moment maybe he could be, and he wasn't. And it's just a very unremarkable team going sort of top to bottom with it, unless Dybala's there. Now, Dybala trained with the group and maybe he'll have some part to play. But really, when you look at his sort of recent history, his last start was 8th of April. Other than that, even before this last injury, he's had piecemeal performances coming in off the bench. So I expect if he's going to play, it's going to be 20 minutes off the end. So there is a lack of absolute quality in this Roma side, but perhaps again that's true for Sevilla as well, and they are missing some important pieces. Acuna's suspension because of that sending off in the Juventus actually is really meaningful. He's played a lot of games for them this season, so I don't think we're seeing two great teams in this final. And I think that it does loop me back to where I started, which is, do I think a great manager can make the difference in a one-off game between two teams with lots of flaws? I kind of do.
Yes, Mourinho between the two has the pedigree, right? I do really like Mendilibar. I very much lean towards a pragmatic coach, and I think he's very much that guy. I like their midfield. I certainly think it can be a very good midfield, but it's a very average team. Let's be honest. They are 11th in the league and they finished 4th last season. So it's a huge drop off that we've seen from them. They've just completely fallen by the wayside. They haven't had very good transfer markets, in all honesty. And a lot of great talent has left and not replaced with greatness. I'm interested to see what would happen because their right wing is obviously Ocampos and Navas, and that's against Spinazzola and Ibanez. And again, I feel like sometimes when I talk about having to defend against that, I feel like Roma know how to do it. Roma know how to defend against all types. And if you saw sort of Bayer Leverkusen in the second leg, it's like they noted where and how they were going to attack and then simultaneously grew into their defensive plan. Most teams grow into their attacking plan, like Napoli. but Roma are one of those that's like, all right, how are you going to defend? And let's figure this out, how we can stop you entirely having any shots, And they are just, I guess, like tremendous at doing that. It was 23 shots from Bayer Leverkusen to 1 by Roma. It was spectacular. I mean, it really was shithousery, and it's just like, we're going to do everything we can to stop you. I worry of the ability of Rakitic. Bono is just a great goalkeeper as well. But it is what it is. I mean, there's Smalling, there's Matic, there's Cristante. There's a lot of defensive might when it comes to Roma. I just want to make sure that when they do get their chances, and there might be only 2 or 3 in the game, that they can convert those chances. And so I really do hope that Dybala is available for them for more than a few minutes to sort of show us some level or some beauty on the ball. Pellegrini was rested, so he should be able to hopefully make a difference. And I really hope for Abraham that he gets his chance to really shine, because it's been a difficult season for him. And he has his moments, of course, but it's nowhere near what the season that he produced last year. And obviously no Zaniolo to make the difference, I guess. So a little bit sad.
Yeah. And I guess that's sort of like the other side of the coin, isn't it? Like, you're talking about ruthlessness. And, for instance, in the Europa League, I think in the series had this really great scoring record for Sevilla. And I think he's one of those players who doesn't contribute all that much in a lot of ways to the team's build-up play, but he can be quite ruthless and
very clinical.
Perhaps. And, we even saw Lamela, didn't we?
Against Juventus.
make his impact. And that's another player who definitely can change a game just on his own in an instant. And I think maybe Sevilla have more of that in them. They have more of that sort of individual game-changing players in that team than Roma do, actually, if Dybala's not there, especially. And that is why, yes, you start to look at set pieces and think, what can Roma do from a set piece? What can they do from a corner or a free kick? And can they make those differences? I do think, yeah, in a tight game, having the more clinical ability is one of the things that can flip everything. And when I look at it, things from that perspective, I do think Sevilla have more potential in them for just scoring a goal, which is a really sort of bland thing to say, I feel like, but it's kind of the whole point, isn't it? Just scoring a goal sometimes.
Look, if you're going to defend the way that, Chiesa gave the ball away and then Sevilla can have a great chance to sort of equalize like they did in the second leg.
I think it was the equalizer. I think it was the equalizer. You're making it out myself, but I think it was the equalizer.
Anyway, my point is that Juventus sort of didn't defend very well against Sevilla. But I think that had they shown the usual performances that you would expect for Juventus on a defensive level, then I don't think Sevilla would have had those chances to score the goals that they did. But at one point, it just felt like there was just so much space for them to navigate. And if you do leave pockets, they are so good at exploiting those pockets. And Roma are just a lot more compact. They are better between the lines. And obviously, they can win almost everything centrally. So that's one thing that I feel like they're very best when it comes to the aerial. Just they're actually one of the very best in Europe. I think only Newcastle and one other team is a little bit better than them. For that level, I do feel like Sevilla is going to get really frustrated in not getting their chances. And so they might have to rely on, shots outside the box. Sometimes you saw that from Bayer Leverkusen. And they do, like you, in that level, I understand and I agree with you. I do think they have the players that can probably score that kind of goal. It could go on, honestly, it could really go either way. But when you look at the squads, I don't think they're too dissimilar.
No, I don't think so. I agree with that.
But I do think that, yes, it is about a coach who's willing to do everything and anything to win.
I want to ask you a question, which is, assuming you haven't got Dybala, what's your starting attack for Roma? How are you choosing that attack if you haven't got Dybala?
I don't think they have Rzouki available.
I think Rzouki is fit. He's certainly on the expected formations that I've seen.
Is he good to start or come off the bench?
It's a very good question. I was under the impression he is good to start. We don't know, do we? Because he'd come off against Fiorentina. So I suppose that is the big question, isn't it? If he's not available to start, then that's going to thin things out even more. But I thought he was good to start, but then maybe I'm wrong on that.
Even if he is, he's not usually always the guy that's picked, right? But yeah, I was just wondering whether or not then it would be Abraham, I guess, with Pellegrini and Dybala behind in sort of like the triangle. Cristante and Matic in midfield, I would say. Obviously Smalling, Mancini, Ibanez. Spinazzola is the only one about this that worries me sometimes because he has his moments where he can lose concentration for a second and give you an opportunity, So that's the only, and it comes in the wing where Sevilla is the strongest. So there's going to need to be a lot of help from the midfielders in order to shut all of it down. I still don't see Sevilla scoring. I just don't. They're just not a good team. I know that United, like if you look at the game between Manchester United and them, and I know, yes, they scored like a lot of goals in the second leg, but really they should never have been there to have those opportunities. It was like literally freak own goals. They shouldn't have reached this stage of the competition. And Juventus, well, they were just diabolical, frankly speaking. And yet they still made a match of it in the second half when, they were playing at Sanchez Pizjuan and it all was falling apart for them anyway. But I mean, they should have won that match again. I mean, in the sense that Juventus on paper should never be losing to Sevilla. On the pitch, they should have definitely lost to Sevilla, but they're just not a very good team. Like, I think Roma are a good team, and that's the only difference, right? Like, I can't imagine it. What's your starting lineup for this?
Yeah, I think I was imagining Rzouki starting.
But not Belotti, right? You wouldn't put...
I really struggle with the idea of starting Belotti. I don't rule out that Mourinho would. I think Mourinho might disagree with me on that, and I think that Mourinho deserves the benefit of the decision more than I do, frankly, because he's the one who's got them there. But I would probably go with Pellegrini and Rzouki behind Abraham, assuming Dybala can't start. If Dybala can start, he starts. But I just think he's played so little football in the last month. It's really hard for me to imagine that he's there from the first minute.
I'm trying to think. So Sevilla have conceded 1 counter-attack, 1 set piece, and 1 penalty. Roma haven't conceded any from those, only from open play. just the methods in which that they can find and score a goal. So this is, I'm just looking to see. I really do think set pieces will decide this. If it goes to penalty, who's your money on?
Oh, God.
This is where I think it gets sticky.
Penalties is rarely a happy space for Italian football unless they're playing England.
Roma, Sevilla, penalties. Who's winning?
Become a member at patreon.com/Serie Chronicles for regular bonus episodes and content.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.